Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning class. Good morning. Okay, so for today's lecture, we're going to enter a new topic, a totally new topic, which is organic chemistry. Starting from chapter 4 until chapter 13, kita akan belajar organic chemistry. The name of this chapter is Introductions to Organic Chemistry. Introductions means you are going to use all the knowledge you are going to learn in this chapter throughout this SK025, the rest of the chapters. Okay, so we'll start from this 4.1 called Molecular and Structural Formula. Kita ada 4.4 sampai 4.4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 and 4.4. Tapi tak boleh habislah dalam sejam sampai 4.4. I'll try my best sampai mana kita boleh stop. Because this chapter will be asked for your assignment. Since dia akan ditanya dalam assignment, saya hanya akan ajar sekali ni saja. Lepas tu buat tutorial, lepas tu kita terus buat assignment. Assignment once dapat soalan, walaupun masa dapat soalan tu kita dah belajar chapter lain, awak still kena buat assignment dan hantar pada waktu sepatutnya. Okay? So let's start. So from the name of the subtopic itself, we have molecular and structural formula. When we say formula, it means dia ada apa dalam formula tu? Bila sebut a formula, what comes to your mind? Bagi contoh, any contoh. Sorry? Just anything, bagi tahu saya. CH4 lagi. AlCl3 formula tak? Yes, chemical formula lah. Before this, you learned about empirical formula, you learned about molecular formula. Okay, now kita nak guna molecular formula. And for organic chemistry, sebab kita nak belajar more thoroughly about the reactions and stuff, you need to know how to draw the structural formula. So starting from this semester, awak akan lukis semua chemical formula dalam bentuk structure. Boleh? So, on your left, we have molecular formula. On the right, we have structural formula. Can I know what's the difference between these two? Dalam molecular formula, dia tunjuk apa je? Yeah, number of atoms do you have? You have only 1 carbon and 4 hydrogen. So this molecular formula tells you the types of atoms present and its number only. Kalau contoh dia ada 3 carbon, dia tulislah C3. Kalau kata ada 12H, dia tulis H12. Chemical formula, molecular formula is not the same as in structural formula. Structural formula, just like the one on the right, it tells you about the arrangement of how this molecular formula is arranged. You start from the molecular formula and then you akan arrange dia. Macam mana nak arrange? Based on the knowledge you have learned in chapter 4 last semester. We learned about the bonding, now we are going to apply all of them. Tapi bukanlah nak suruh lukis hybrid, bukan nak suruh lukis the overlapping. Just nak tahu carbon boleh buat berapa banyak bond. Nitrogen boleh buat berapa banyak bond. Oxygen boleh buat berapa banyak bond. Faham? Okay. So bila lukis, kalau kat mana perlu letak lone pair, tolong letak lone pair. Because they will affect the reactions taking place on that particular compound. Okay. So structural formula is basically they show the actual number of atoms, relative placement and the bonds between them. But in structural formula, we have 3 different types. They are the first one, expanded structure. Bila sebut expanded structure, kita faham dia akan kembang. Okay, daripada CH3, C nak pergi H dia tunjuk, C nak pergi H dia tunjuk, C nak pergi H dia tunjuk. Itu maksud expanded. And then we have condensed structure. So from the expanded, we are going to condensekan structure tu, compresskan dia supaya dekat-dekat. Okay, adalah beberapa rules yang kita kena apply. And then we have skeletal structure. Skeletal, rangka. So instead of tulis C, H, kita akan tulis bond sahaja. Okay. Then for expanded structure, this is the structure that shows all the covalent bonds. Bila sebut all the covalent bonds, give me an example of covalent bond present in CH4. Kat mana yang ada covalent bond tu? C and H. C dengan H kita akan overlap electrons, dia akan form a covalent bond. Okay, so dalam expanded, you are going to show all the C and H and O together with the bond between them. So this is how you draw your expanded structure. Okay. So kalau tengok sini, C dengan H, C elemen lain, H elemen lain, kena ada bond between them. C dengan O, dia elemen lain, kena ada bond between them. O dengan H ada bond between them. Kalau dia minta expanded, semua kena expand. Okay, so kalau propane pula, apa beza propanol dengan propane? Dekat sini kita ada double bond. Okay, dekat mana yang double bond, kena letak double bond lah. Okay, yang ni kita dah belajar kot, faham kot macam mana nak buat. Okay, kenapa kena propane ni nantilah kita nak belajar dalam chapter ni. So awak tengok, one propanol got C3, propane pun C3. But then, because this is alcohol, they got H8. Because this is alkane, we got H6 only. So this we are going to learn in 4.2. Okay, as for condensed structure, the carbon, hydrogen and carbon-carbon single bond, the covalent bond between them are not normally shown. Kita tak tunjuk dalam condensed structure. Okay, and then kenapa kita tak tunjuk? Kita akan tukar dengan apa? Kalau kita ada functional group or heteroatoms or any other alkyl groups, something else apart from C and H, we need to put a bracket. Sometimes bracket, sometimes single bond, sometimes apa lagi? Dia boleh letak je tengah tu. Asalkan that carbon that should hold the heteroatoms and stuff, dia dalam susunan yang betul. Okay. And then itu untuk open chain structure. Open chain structure maksudnya you tak ada cyclic structure. If you have cyclic structure, even though you are not going to show the C and H bond, you still need to show the C and C bond that makes the cycle. Okay, faham tak? Kan kalau kita ada open chain, kita bolehlah condense dia, right? C sebelah C sebelah C. Tapi kalau awak ada asalnya cyclic structure, you need to draw the condensed structure for cyclic ring and cyclic compound. Adakah kita nak buang juga the bond between the carbon and carbon? Kalau you buang, tak ada bezalah dia dengan open chain. So untuk cyclic structure, you need to keep the carbon and carbon bond yang make the cycle. So we have an example of 2-propanol. This is for the open chain structure. So we initially have this expanded. Usually kalau awal-awal belajar, kita nampak je perkataan ni, kita keluar expanded dulu, baru kita nampak susunan dia. Okay, we know we have 3 carbon, so kita susun 3 carbon. The name is 2-propanol because the OH is located at carbon number 2. You will learn about this in chapter alcohol. Setiap kali kita belajar pasal sesuatu compound, kita akan belajar naming. Okay, so the name is 2-propanol. So they should have this carbon located in period 2 group 14. They should have only 4 carbons around them and they achieve octet, is it? Kalau tengok sini, carbon is located in group 14. Sepatutnya kena ada 4 valence electron. Around 8, sebab dia period 2, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's why they are octet. They already achieve stability. So carbon kena ada 4 bond. Kat sini pun kita ada 4 carbon, 4 bond, sini pun ada 4 bond. Okay, kalau oksigen walaupun you nampak 2, sebenarnya dia ada lone pair. Okay, contoh dia. Bila kita nak condense, tadi kita cakap condense kita tak tunjuk apa? Kita tunjuk semua ke kita ada tak tunjuk something? Tak tunjuk CC dengan CH. Okay, so bila kita tukar jadi condense, dia ada beberapa version. So for the first version, you remove all the single bonds in here. 1, 2, 3. So this first carbon hold the 3H. The second carbon, dia ada sebelah dia CC, dia ada H dengan OH sahaja. H kita boleh letak sebelah. OH sometimes kita tarik dia sebagai another branch. Nak show yang dia ada heteroatoms. Dia only show the heteroatoms. Apart from that, dia tak show. Lepas tu CH3, dia asalkan C ni kena pegang 3 carbon. So kita tahu tak? Kalau ditunjuk macam ni, kita tahulah dia adalah straight chain. Longest chain is 3 carbon. Dia lain lah sikit, awak nampak the structure. Second representations, you can also letakkan OH yang dekat tengah carbon number 2 without bracket or without single bond. As long as they are next to this second carbon. Okay. And then the third representations, same as the second representations, but then you put a bracket or the parenthesis. Okay, to show there is heteroatoms. And last one, kita bukan nak cakap pasal heteroatoms. Look in here, we have 3 carbons. The central carbon got the same environment of CH3 and CH3, right? Okay, walaupun C dengan H tu bukan heteroatoms, sebab dia punya environment sama, awak pun boleh further condense dia jadi macam ni. Asalkan the carbon keliling dia ada 4 benda. Kalau kita condense pun tak ada masalah. Lainlah, you ada carbon number 2 dan carbon kat hujung dia ada pegang benda lain pula. Lepas tu awak nak gabungkan, lepas tu OH letak hujung sekali. Dia nanti dah tak tunjuk lah. Nanti kita akan tengok lagi dalam tutorial. Okay. Right? Okay. Then last one is skeletal structure. Skeletal structure, C atoms, mana ada carbon kita tak tunjuk. Walaupun dia tak buat bond. Ada je carbon kita tak tunjuk. And then carbon between, bond between carbon and hydrogen pun kita tak tunjuk. So, how are we going to draw this? Kalau kita tak tunjuk, kalau dia open chain, kita akan tarik straight je kan? How do you know how many carbons do we have? So, we are going to draw this chain as zigzag. Kalau open chain, kita lukis zigzag. Setiap each one carbon, tarik atas bawah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 macam tu. Okay, but then itu untuk open chain sahaja. If you got rings, okay, bila you got rings, you kena buat polygon lah without showing the carbon, but then you form a ring. Kalau 5 carbon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 macam tu. Sambung balik. Okay, and then for this skeletal structure, sebab carbon, hydrogen kita tak tunjuk, but then untuk functional group or heteroatoms, kita akan tunjuk dia. Kalau you ada OH, kena tarik another bond, OH. Boleh tak kita letak bracket kalau kita ada ring? Heteroatoms, kita ada ring, kita nak letak bracket je kat tepi heteroatoms tu. Tak boleh. Okay, tak boleh. Dia kena tarik je bond kat dia, lepas tu tulis OH. Okay, so let's say we have this example of 4-chloro-2-methyl-2-butene. Means the longest chain is 4 carbon comes from the but. And then we have in here, means we have double bond in them. And then on carbon number 2, we have methyl. Methyl is the alkyl group. Carbon dan hydrogen, tapi dia sebagai substituents. Okay, and then at carbon number 4, we have chloro, means chlorine. Dia adalah heteroatoms. So, bila kita lukis structure expanded, rupa dia macam ni. 1, 2, 3, 4, the longest chain. And then at carbon number 2, we have this methyl. At carbon number 4, we have this chlorine. So now, how are you going to draw this? First, you need to draw the carbon skeleton. Look for the longest carbon chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. First option. 1, 2, 3. Second option. 4 ke 3 paling panjang? 4. So kita pun letak dia 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at carbon number 2, we have this methyl. Nanti kenapa? Nanti awak tanya, Miss, mana kita nak start numbering daripada mana? Nanti kita belajar lah the priorities. Okay, so kita letak ni kat carbon number 2 here, kita patutnya ada CH3. Okay, CH3 is a methyl group. Okay, is a methyl group, is alkyl group, but then dia ada C dengan H kan? Kalau kita tarik another bond, perlu tak kita tunjuk CH3 tu? Tak, simply tarik macam ni sahaja. Tak perlu tulis CH3. Okay, and then at carbon number 2 here, we have double bond. How should we draw this double bond? Tambah je lagi double bond. Kita check betul tak keliling carbon ada 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. So tak ada masalah lah. Sebab dekat dalam ni kita tak tulis CH. Okay. Kadang-kadang nak ada masalah nanti kat condensed or expanded, awak terlupa nak padam H lah, awak lebih H. Okay, and then dekat carbon number 4, we have chlorine. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we going to put Cl on here or we need to extend the bond? Extend another bond. Okay, sebab ada yang saya akan jumpa nanti, carbon dah 4, tiba-tiba Cl tergantung. You have to show the bonding between carbon and Cl because they got carbon in here, right? C-Cl bond. Okay. Next, we have butylamine. Okay, ini adalah another example where you have heteroatoms in between your carbon skeleton. Okay, in between your carbon skeleton because amine adalah NH2. Dia boleh tukar jadi NHCH3, NH, NCH3, CH3. Faham tak? Dia bertukar-tukar lah. Okay, jadi nampak kat sini kita ada nitrogen in between. So, bila ada nitrogen in between, nitrogen ni kita nak show tak? Show. Kalau dia in between, maksudnya you kena tarik lah bond between the N and also C. So, we have this 1, 2, 3 carbon means in between carbon number 1 and carbon number 2, you should put N like this. 1, tarik, jumpa N dulu, tarik another carbon 2, 3. Okay, on a nitrogen, we have this CH3. Are we going to draw the CH3 bonds? No, just tarik satu bond to show the bond between N and C. Tapi H ni kita dah tak tunjuk. Assuming here we have 3 hydrogens. Okay, ada lagi tak? Tak ada heteroatoms dah. Habislah macam ni lah rupa dia kalau skeletal. Kena tahu lukis skeletal sebab inilah structure yang kita akan guna bila kita nak buat mechanism, bila kita nak buat reactions. Most commonly kita use skeletal structure in organic chemistry. Jimat masa dan lebih senang lah nak tunjuk. Okay, next one we have cyclopropanol. Is this an open chain or closed chain structure? Close lah, dia adalah ring. So bila dia ring, tengok berapa carbon, ada 1, 2, 3. So prop is 3 carbon. Jadi bentuk macam mana? Triangle. Okay, so kalau expanded, you kena show kan? Macam ni. Kalau skeletal, perlu tak tunjuk carbon to carbon to carbon tu? Tak perlu, dia macam ni saja. Okay, and then we have on this carbon, kita ada OH. So kita tariklah OH. Bila awak ada satu saja hydroatom, sebenarnya tak kisah nak letak kat sini boleh, kat sini pun boleh, walaupun tak sama. Lainlah kalau awak ada dua hydroatoms, kena prioritize lah siapa comes first. And then put the numbering and stuff. Okay, apart from knowing the, tadi kita panggil apa? Structure tu? Structural formula. 3 benda kan? Awak pun kena tahu how to classify carbon atoms. Okay, how do you classify carbon atoms? So these classifications of carbons only happen to sp3 carbon. Do you still remember how do we, what is the shape of sp3 hybridized carbon? S, P1, P2, P3. Maksudnya cleaning carbon kena ada berapa bond? 4. Only carbon that got 4 bonds sahaja yang boleh kita classify the class of carbon. If you have carbon attached to a double bond, boleh tak kita nak classify the carbon as well? Tak boleh. These classifications of carbon only happens to sp3 hybridized carbon. They got 4 electron groups around it. Okay. So, sebab dia ada 4, so kita boleh ada up to 4 classes. Kita ada primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary. So how do we determine whether this carbon belongs to primary, secondary, tertiary or quaternary? That will all depends on the number of carbon atom that is directly attached to this desired carbon yang saya highlighted in pink ni. Okay, so kalau the primary means dia kena ada berapa carbon atom directly attached to it? Only 1. So selebihnya adalah hydrogen lah. And then what about the secondary? Sepatutnya ada 2, tertiary got 3, quaternary got 4. Boleh tak ada sampai 5? Tak boleh sebab carbon maksimum dia 4 sahaja. Okay, let's say your carbon in here, you got so many other carbons. Kita nak kira berapa banyak carbon tu ke? Kita nak tengok only the carbon that is directly attached to it. Directly attached to it. Walaupun dia besar, kita tak kira yang berapa banyak dia ada tu. Sometimes dia ada bulky alkyl group. Okay, dia tengok siapa yang directly attached. Okay, that's how you classify your carbon. Then apart from carbon, because we are talking about this organic compound, we got C and H as the backbone. Kita juga akan tengok classifications of hydrogen atom. Classifications of hydrogen atom still rely on the carbon atom tadi, sp3 hybridized juga. Tetapi it will depends on the type of carbon atom attached to it. Maksudnya kita kena fokus pada this carbon hydrogen bond. Kita akan fokus pada carbon bearing the hydrogen. How many carbon attached to it? Okay. So bila nak tentukan hydrogen class, kena tengok hydrogen yang attached pada carbon tu, kita keep dia as a reference. Dan look at how many carbon attached to that carbon bearing the hydrogen. Okay. So dalam primary, kita akan ada 1 sahaja. Kalau secondary got 2. Tertiary got 3. Boleh tak dia go up to 4? Tak boleh sebab one of the bond between carbon telah diambil oleh hydrogen. So dia tak ada ruang dah. So hydrogen classes got until 3 only. Tertiary. Kalau carbon ada sampai 4. Okay. So kita buat latihan sikit. Identify primary, secondary and tertiary hydrogen in the following alkane. Dia tak tanya carbon berapa. Dia tanya hydrogen. Hydrogen ada sampai berapa tadi? 3. Okay. Sekarang ni saya dah senangkan awak. Saya dah highlightkan warna merah ni. Sekarang awak tengok yang merah ni. Kalau kita keep only this carbon bearing the hydrogen as a reference. How many carbon are directly attached to it? Only 1 carbon. Means the one highlighted in hydrogen should be, what is the class for hydrogen? Primary. Tapi ini baru untuk 1 hydrogen. Awak ada berapa hydrogen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kenapa saya kata 9? Okay, kalau tak percaya tengok pula. For this carbon bearing the hydrogen, how many carbon directly attached to it? 1. So samalah primary hydrogen juga. Kalau yang ni pula, how many carbon directly attached to this carbon bearing the hydrogen? 1. So sebab itulah saya highlight di merah, diorang ni semua primary hydrogen. So ada berapa banyak primary hydrogen dalam kita punya structure? 9. Okay. Right. So tengok pula yang hijau ni. Carbon bearing the hydrogen now got how many carbon directly attached to it? 3. Where is it? 1, 2, 3. So that belongs to which class? Tertiary. Okay. Now dan dia ada berapa banyak hydrogen warna hijau? 1. Jadi berapa je? 1 je lah. Okay. And lastly we have this hydrogen warna biru. Hydrogen warna biru ni bagi tahu saya tak dia ni kelas apa? Kenapa ke secondary? Okay, dia directly attached. So kita tengok carbon bearing the hydrogen directly attached to it. We have 2 hydrogens. 1, 2. Okay, so kita ada 9 primary hydrogen, 2 secondary hydrogen, 1 tertiary hydrogen. Macam itulah. Okay, kalau saya kata saya nak carbon pula, how do you determine the class of carbon? Kita kena check tak semua carbon? Kena. So now let's check. Kita tengok carbon yang ni. Berapa banyak carbon directly attached to it? 1. So dia primary. What about this one? 1, 2, 3. So dia tertiary. What about this one? 2. Secondary. What about this one? Primary. What about this one? So sebenarnya bila you ada primary carbon, hydrogen you pun usually primary hydrogen. Macam tu. Tapi kena always check lah. So kalau you ada quaternary carbon, you ada tak classes of hydrogen? Tak ada. Okay. Habis untuk Allah. Okay. Habis untuk 4.1. Any questions so far? You learn about structural formula. There are 3 altogether. You learn about the class of hydrogen. You learn about the class of carbon. That's all for 4.1.